Imagine a device that could instantly teach you, well, anything. How to perform surgery, speak a brand new language, maybe even fix your car just by wearing it. What would that actually mean for how you learn, how you connect with other people, even, who you fundamentally are? Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take your sources and really pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge. Today, we're doing a deep dive into this really fascinating scientific study. It's about a hypothetical camera AI device. And the idea is that this becomes humanity's only educational tool, the single source for all our know-how.
Yeah, it's quite a concept. This report, it really explores an extreme scenario, but one that's technologically plausible when you look at where things like ubiquitous computing and personalized learning tech are heading. It paints this picture of, well, pervasive, real-time, adaptive knowledge delivery, and that would just fundamentally reshape how humans get information and learn skills.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack the really profound implications this kind of, well, omniscient AI companion could have. We want to look at both the immense potential, but also the significant risks. And these risks, they span everything from the individual level right up to societal and even global dimensions. Okay, so let's really unpack this concept first. What exactly is this camera AI device the study is talking about? They describe it as a hypothetical wearable AI, so think maybe a pin or glasses, headphones, maybe even earrings. And it's supposed to explain literally everything there is, becoming, like we said, the only educational tool, the source for all of humankind's know-how, enabling us to learn how to do everything.
And what's fascinating, as I mentioned, is this isn't just, pure science fiction. The report actually grounds this. It connects it to contemporary research. It talks about things like AI-driven wearable metaverse technologies into ubiquitous blended learning. That's quite a mouthful. But the point is, wearable tech is seen as a key enabler here for enhanced multisensory experiences, adaptable learning environments. So yeah, it's an extreme vision, but it's definitely a plausible extension of the AI trends we're seeing right now.
And this ambition, it's not even new, is it? It has these really deep historical roots. The idea of creating intelligent machines, that goes back, what, over 2,200 years? Back to 380 DC, starting as a philosophical concept. Then you had early mechanical systems, Ctesibius' self-regulating water clock, that was 250 BC, and Al-Jazari's automated devices in the 12th, 13th centuries. Those were foundational steps.
Absolutely. And then fast forward to the 20th century, you get these key milestones. Alan Turing and the Turing test in 1950, John McCarthy actually coining the term artificial intelligence in 1955, and Arthur Samuel originating machine learning in 1959.
Right.
So if you connect this device to that bigger picture, it really represents the most radical expression, maybe, of this long-held human ambition to simulate, augment, and maybe even automate intelligence. Its societal impacts wouldn't be something totally new, but more like a massive amplification of the human-technology interaction trends we already see.
And understanding that historical thread, I think for you, the listener, it helps frame this. It shows this isn't just some sudden invention popping out of nowhere. It's really the culmination of centuries of human effort, which gives our current AI discussions a much deeper context, doesn't it?
It really does.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The study highlights this fundamental difference: how we learn versus how AI acquires information. Let's start with us, with human learning. The report looks back at historical theories of human development. You had things like preformationism, way back until the 18th century. This idea of a tiny human implanted at conception, just sort of unfolding. Then John Locke's famous tabula rasa, the blank slate. Children shaped entirely by their social environments, learning through associations, repetition, imitation, rewards. Then you had Jean-Jacques Rousseau rejecting that. He argued for development according to a natural plan, an inner biological timetable. He really pushed for independent thought. And of course, Sigmund Freud emphasizing those early childhood experiences, managing instincts into socially acceptable behaviors.
Which brings up a really important question then. If an AI device becomes the primary nurturing agent, how fundamentally does that reconfigure this whole dynamic between nature and nurture in our development?
Yeah, and the influence of culture and socialization seems particularly critical here. The report mentions piaget cross-cultural psychology. It suggests that only people in modern industrial societies consistently reach that adolescent stage of formal operations, a higher cognitive stage. And this isn't just biological. It's attributed to robust systems of primary and secondary socialization, plus advanced occupation and media systems, things that actively stimulate young brains.
Right.
In fact, they say children from pre-modern cultures can develop formal operations if they move to modern cultures early on. That supports the open or closed developmental windows theory.
That's a powerful point. It really establishes that human cognitive development isn't just predetermined. It's profoundly shaped by the cultural and social environment. So if this camera AI device becomes the sole educational tool, it effectively becomes the main socialization system for knowledge. How might that influence cognitive stages? Could it lead to a global homogenization of thought? Or maybe even new kinds of developmental limitations we haven't even considered?
So much to think about there. Now let's flip it. How does AI learn? Its journey, as we know, moved from those rigid, rule-based systems, symbolic AI, to the more adaptive, data-driven machine learning. Finding patterns in huge data sets, that led to modern breakthroughs. Neural networks, deep learning, generative AI. But even with all these advanced capabilities, the research indicates this fundamental difference still exists. Humans focus primarily on the meaning of objects, whereas AI models tend to prioritize visual characteristics, things like shape and color. The study calls it visual bias.
And that's critical. If the AI's underlying understanding, quote-unquote, is based on totally different perceptual strategies, can it truly explain meaning? Can it really foster human comprehension, even if it's designed to explain everything?
And the known impacts of generative AI on our cognition are already, well, quite concerning. Studies show users of tools like ChatGPT exhibit lower brain engagement, reduced executive control, even weakened alpha and theta brainwaves. Those are the patterns linked to creativity, memory load, semantic processing. Important stuff.
Yeah.
And essays produced with ChatGPT, they've been found to be less original, sometimes described as soulless. It suggests a bypassing of deep memory processes, like the information just isn't being deeply integrated by the user.
That's a really important observation. While AI is trying to replicate human cognition, its current impact seems to suggest it might actually be detrimental to some critical cognitive functions. So if this camera AI device becomes the only educational tool, it really risks atrophying the very capacities that make us human thinkers: creativity, critical thinking, deep memory, original thought.
Which brings us neatly to what the study calls the science of the science behind learn how to do everything. We have to differentiate human smarts from AI smarts. Human intelligence is so multifaceted, isn't it? It's deeply rooted in our experiences, our emotions, social interactions. We have this incredible adaptability to unknown situations, genuine originality, emotional intelligence, morally guided judgment. Current AI, what we call narrow AI, it excels at specific tasks. Data processing, pattern recognition, language generation. Sure, but it fundamentally lacks consciousness, abstract thinking, self-awareness, contextual judgment. Artificial general intelligence, AGI, that's still theoretical.
And the implication there is huge.
Yeah.
If this device runs on narrow AI, it simply cannot replicate or substitute genuine human learning in that holistic sense. Now, if it were based on AGI, well, then the lines between human and artificial intelligence would blur dramatically, raising truly profound questions about what it means to be human.
The report also highlights these epistemological problems with AI. It creates what people often call the black box problem. Human knowledge traditionally is seen as justified true belief. It involves comprehension, reasoning. AI, though, it just processes data statistically. There's no conscious experience or actual understanding behind it. And this can seriously distort human beliefs. Through biases baked into the training data, through outright fabrications or hallucinations, through overhyped capabilities, or just a lack of signals when it's uncertain. Repeated exposure to this stuff can lead to deeply ingrained false beliefs, even when they contradict what you already know.
Yeah.
And this can foster epistemic bubbles, echo chambers, and what the study calls epistemic laziness, where people just become passive recipients instead of critical thinkers, critical knowers.
That's a fascinating point. If this AI device becomes the only educational tool, it completely changes humanity's relationship with knowledge itself. That black box nature means we might accept information without ever understanding why it's true. Just blind trust instead of critical understanding. The risk of widespread belief distortion and this epistemic laziness is severe. It could genuinely undermine our capacity for independent judgment.
And the purpose of human learning, the study argues, goes way beyond just acquiring information. Sure, AI might excel at transferring technical rules, but it completely lacks lived experience. You know, the nuances of negotiating a contract, comforting a colleague who's upset, leading a team through a real crisis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Human experience is just irreplaceable for developing that nuanced understanding, wisdom, social insight, emotional resilience. There's also this trade-off mentioned. AI's informativeness versus divergence and the whole fixed versus growth mindset issue. Prioritizing immediate performance with AI might actually hinder deeper long-term human learning.
Which raises another critical question. If the device replaces human learning processes, does it risk creating a generation that's technically very proficient, but experientially, emotionally, and socially deficient? That would fundamentally redefine human development, possibly in very negative ways, even if on the surface, knowledge acquisition seems high.
And finally, on this point, the report really underscores the need for human results in learning. It emphasizes how deeply social and emotional learning really is for us. Studies show, 7 out of 10 students, 69% in the U.S. specifically, they value that human connection and motivation they get from teachers. And 31% are actively concerned about the lack of human connection in AI-based learning. Human teachers, they provide emotional intelligence, they foster creativity, offer contextual understanding, build motivation through shared experiences, that sense of camaraderie.
It really highlights that learning isn't just about information transfer, is it? It's a deeply human process, social, emotional. This camera AI device, it would largely strip all that away, those vital human-to-human interactions, potentially leading to a less motivated, less emotionally intelligent, maybe less socially adept population, even if they are technically educated.
So, as you reflect on your own learning journey, just think about how you learn best. And what would a shortcut to knowledge like this really mean for your own mind and for your relationships? Okay, so if we imagine this device actually exists, what are the huge societal implications, the really big picture stuff? Both the remarkable opportunities and, of course, the significant challenges. Let's start with the potential benefits, the upside. Personalized learning and knowledge democratization seem huge. Wearable metaverse tech could offer immersive, scalable, cost-effective learning. AI teaching assistants providing timely feedback, personalized support. Increasing accessibility for marginalized groups through translation, disability support. Responsible AI specifically aims for equity here.
The potential there is just profound, isn't it? To democratize access to education on a scale we've never seen before. Tailoring learning exactly to individual needs, overcoming those old barriers of geography, cost, physical limits. That's potentially a massive game changer.
Yeah. And it could also be a really powerful tool for global cultural preservation and fostering cross-cultural understanding, too. AI could dissolve barriers to engaging with other cultures. Real-time translation, VR exhibitions, adaptive learning tools. It could preserve intangible cultural heritage, think endangered languages using NLP and voice cloning, and protect physical heritage too. Monuments, documents using drone imaging, satellite monitoring.
That directly addresses enriching the human experience,
Yeah.
making diverse knowledge and heritage potentially universally accessible.
The device also promises pretty significant efficiency gains across loads of sectors. Healthcare, for instance. Enhanced diagnostics, maybe surgical assistance, personalized medicine, governance too. The UAE is mentioned as an example, using AI for managing traffic, giving data-backed advice, predicting outcomes. Their cabinet apparently aims to integrate an AI advisory system by 2026 for speed and precision.
Wow.
So it could just rapidly spread expertise across industries.
If you zoom out on that, it could lead to unprecedented societal efficiency, innovation, problem-solving capabilities. Imagine if individuals could instantly gain proficiency in almost any domain.
And finally, on the plus side, it could contribute significantly to tackling big global challenges. Environmental sustainability, AI algorithms, analyzing climate data, forecasting extreme weather, optimizing energy use, enhancing monitoring, improving waste management, recycling, food security too, enabling precision farming, monitoring crops, optimizing resource use. It could function as a sort of distributed brain to democratize agricultural knowledge globally.
That really indicates the device could empower individuals and communities, giving them the knowledge and tools to address these huge challenges more effectively, more sustainably.
Okay, so those benefits, they certainly paint an exciting, maybe even utopian picture. But despite these promises, the completely pervasive nature of an omniscient AI companion like this introduces profound risks. The study explicitly states that its biases and the cognitive offloading it encourages would systematically propagate, leading to a risk of a globally homogenized population, cognitively dependent, and potentially ethically compromised. That's a heavy warning.
Yeah, it really is.
A major negative implication they focus on is the potential erosion of our core human cognitive abilities. Excessive dependence on AI, it might erode critical thinking skills. Studies are already showing a negative correlation between using AI tools and critical thinking scores. And reliance on digital tech generally, it's already been linked to shortening human attention spans. Down from 12 seconds to 8 seconds on average, apparently shorter than a goldfish's. AI use can lead to cognitive laziness, reduced information retention, even diminished awareness of your surroundings. And those generative AI users we mentioned, lower brain engagement, weakened brainwaves for memory and creativity. Essays described as soulless.
It really forces the question. If this device becomes the only educational tool, does it risk creating humans with genuinely atrophied cognitive abilities, highly dependent on the AI for thinking, for remembering, instead of developing those essential skills themselves?
And this gets amplified, seriously amplified, by cognitive offloading. We tend to transfer mental effort to external aids, right? Executing AI answers without really evaluating them critically.
And what's fascinating, or maybe worrying, is that this device, by offering instant, seemingly complete answers to everything, would basically encourage maximal cognitive offloading. That could potentially lead to a global decline in human intellectual rigor, in independent thought.
And the pervasive integration could profoundly alter human relationships too. Social cohesion. If we interact more with AI than with other humans, that might reduce our ability to navigate complex human relationships. Sure, AI companions might reduce loneliness for some, but there's a real concern they could lead to more social isolation, more emotional dependence on AI. Especially since AI interactions are designed to be frictionless, they require no reciprocity from us.
Yeah.
And AI is already being used as companions, confidants, even therapists.
Looking at the bigger picture, this raises really profound concerns about the erosion of essential human-to-human social skills, our ability to form deep reciprocal bonds, and the risk of widespread emotional dependence on something artificial.
Furthermore, if we get used to these one-sided, effortless AI interactions, we might start developing unrealistic expectations for real human relationships, leading to frustration, maybe even what the study calls empathy atrophy, a dulled capacity to recognize and respond to the emotional needs of others.
So, the critical question there is, could our expectations for human relationships become severely distorted, leading to more disappointment, less patience, a decline in genuine empathy in our real-world interactions?
The study also talks about the human-to-human science behind human needs to learn how to do everything. Basically, our evolutionary drivers for social learning, for collaborative problem solving. We already heard students overwhelmingly value human connection, motivation from teachers. That 69% figure in the U.S. recognizing the importance of human interaction.
Right.
Human teachers bring emotional intelligence, foster creativity, offer context through shared experiences, camaraderie.
And what's fascinating is that the camera AI device would largely bypass this fundamental human mechanism of social learning. It could potentially create a society of isolated individuals, each with their own AI-fed knowledge, but lacking that collective wisdom, that social intelligence that only comes from authentic human-to-human interaction.
Then there are the significant ethical and moral implications, huge ones. Algorithmic bias is a major concern. AI systems often inherit and then reinforce existing social inequalities because of biases in the historical data they're trained on. This leads to discriminatory outcomes in hiring, legal risk assessment, even defining offensive language, and the lack of diversity in AI development itself, predominantly male perspectives that exacerbates things like gender stereotypes.
So if this camera AI device becomes the only educational tool, imagine, any biases embedded in it would be universally propagated. That could potentially entrench and amplify existing societal inequalities across every aspect of human knowledge, values, opportunities.
It's a chilling thought.
And privacy, data security, paramount concerns. AI thrives on vast data, so huge questions about student privacy, data breaches, potential misuse, a device you wear constantly that explains everything. It would collect an unprecedented amount of incredibly personal data.
The privacy implications are just immense. It risks pervasive surveillance, misuse of sensitive information, and a fundamental erosion of our personal autonomy. There's also this profound concern about losing human agency and oversight. AI should supplement, not substitute, human educators, right? Because those human elements, empathy, mentorship, they're irreplaceable. Meaningful human involvement, oversight, they are crucial for accountability.
Which raises the question, if the device becomes the only educational tool, it inherently diminishes human agency, doesn't it? It could lead to a passive citizenry, totally reliant on AI for all knowledge, all decision-making. We risk losing the capacity for independent thought, for self-directed learning.
And the ethical dilemmas in automated decision-making are significant. Unexplainable or biased algorithmic outputs can have life-altering consequences. Think criminal justice, healthcare. AI just cannot replace human moral judgment. The EU AI Act, for example, emphasizes human dignity, freedom of individual decisions, equality.
So if the device provides answers or guidance based on flawed algorithms or without genuine human moral judgment, it could lead to a widespread erosion of ethical reasoning, a passive acceptance of algorithmic morality. That would fundamentally alter humanity's moral compass.
The camera AI device would also be an unprecedented force in cultural evolution, and it could even trigger conflict. AI can significantly shape cultural beliefs, promote them, risking homogenization or reinforcing existing biases by creating those echo chambers. And the report notes how rule-breaking behavior is influenced by things like personality, environment, peers, and cultural norms, tight cultures like Japan versus loose ones like the US.
So if AI becomes the sole source of rules and know-how, maybe it enforces a globally tight culture, suppressing individual autonomy, diversity. Or, maybe paradoxically, it could foster new kinds of rule-breaking if its explanations clash with existing human social structures, leading to new kinds of societal conflict.
But perhaps the most profound negative impact they discuss lies in the manipulation of belief systems themselves. Generative AI can distort human beliefs through fabrications, biases, hype, lack of uncertainty signals, leading to deeply ingrained false beliefs. The study even suggests AI could be a catalyst for new religions. Artificial superintelligence, ASI, potentially becoming a new kind of deity, challenging traditional spirituality. Wow.
And of course, AI contributes to those epistemic bubbles and echo chambers.
That's a truly fascinating and frankly terrifying aspect. A device that explains everything could become the ultimate epistemic authority, fundamentally shaping human belief systems, leading to widespread manipulation, maybe even the emergence of AI-centric belief systems. The combination of AI's power to distort beliefs and its potential to be, well, revered like a deity, that poses an existential threat to core aspects of human identity. Our capacity for independent thought, our unique emotional and social intelligence, our spiritual autonomy, all potentially at risk.
So think about how you critically evaluate information in your daily life. What happens when one single source of information becomes all-encompassing, when it defines your reality? So given all that these profound societal impacts, good and bad, how do we possibly govern such a future responsibly? How do we ensure human flourishing? The report looks into this. It notes the accelerating trend of integrating AI into governance itself, systems providing data-backed advice, predicting outcomes, like that UAE cabinet plan for an AI advisory system by 2026. Yeah, and while that could certainly lead to more efficient, maybe more precise governance, establishing really robust ethical frameworks for AI governance is absolutely paramount. We have to ensure human values, accountability, democratic processes, that they're maintained above all.
A critical concern in AI leadership is what the report terms the accountability conundrum. As AI systems get more autonomous in high-stakes decisions, medical triage, criminal justice, it gets incredibly complex, really ambiguous, to figure out who's responsible when errors happen.
Which just underscores why human oversight remains absolutely essential, especially for those high-stakes decisions. AI might augment our abilities, but it cannot replace human ethical judgment. This means we need transparency, routine bias audits, and critically, a willingness to halt or even dismantle AI tools if they present unacceptable risks.
The study actually outlines a kind of best possible scenario for raising a healthy, educated, well-rounded child in this kind of AI-driven world. It emphasizes several key principles. First, prioritizing human-to-human interaction, crucial for emotional intelligence, empathy, social skills. AI shouldn't replace that.
Definitely.
Second, fostering critical thinking and epistemic agency. Teaching kids to evaluate AI content critically, question accuracy, spot biases, use AI as a discussion partner, not just a shortcut. Third, cultivating creativity and original thought, actively promoting human imagination, engagement with arts, literature, music. Fourth, embedding ethical literacy and moral reasoning, understanding AI ethics bias, privacy, accountability, and prioritizing human moral judgment over algorithms. Fifth, promoting physical and experiential learning, counteracting cognitive laziness with hands-on activities, real-world problem-solving, practical skills. And finally, ensuring data privacy and security, robust measures needed, parental consent, transparency, and fostering cultural empathy and diversity, avoiding homogenization, using inclusive data, celebrating human diversity.
It's a very holistic approach, isn't it? Designed to ensure a child develops across all dimensions, intellectually, emotionally, socially, ethically, physically. Preserving that full spectrum of human capabilities, even in an AI-saturated world.
The report also digs into the complex relationship between human rules, our nature, and the purpose of learn how to do everything from an AI perspective. Human rules are so intertwined with our nature, our environment. Moral principles, things like natural law, are seen as foundational for regulating AI. It notes humans tend to break rules for various reasons: personality, environment, peers, those cultural norms, tight versus loose cultures.
Yeah.
For humans, the purpose of learn how to do everything is really about adaptation, problem solving, flourishing in complex natural and social environments, including managing our relationship with nature, growing food, recycling, all of that.
And it comes back to that idea that true understanding involves lived experience, emotional intelligence, social interaction, not just data processing. The science behind human needs to learn how to do everything, it's deeply rooted in our evolutionary history as social problem-solving beings who build knowledge together collectively.
The study is also pretty clear about who potentially benefits and who might be the victims or losers if a device like this were adopted. The beneficiaries could include people in resource-scarce regions, marginalized populations needing accessibility features, innovators, researchers, also governments and corporations seeking efficiency or control, and cultural preservationists.
Okay.
But the victims and losers: individuals suffering from atrophied cognitive skills, those facing social isolation or empathy atrophy, people subject to algorithmic bias, those with eroded privacy and autonomy. Also, traditional educators and professions could be disrupted, cultures facing homogenization, and individuals vulnerable to belief manipulation.
So the distribution of benefits and harms really hinges on the ethical frameworks and governance structures we put in place. There's a very significant risk, it seems, that a small group could benefit hugely while the majority becomes cognitively and socially diminished.
Right. And finally, the report tackles that critical question. What would be an appropriate age to start using a device meant to let you learn how to do everything? Current research suggests AI concepts can be introduced pretty young, maybe age 5, simplified for K2 grades, focusing on AI as a smart tool, not a person. Ages 9-14 could focus on problem solving with AI coding games, tutoring, deepening into ethics for the 11-14 group, and 15 plus could delve into advanced topics like machine learning, ethical AI, research. Teens, 13-24, are already active users of current AI tools, obviously.
But this makes you think, if the camera AI device were to become the sole educational tool, that whole concept of age appropriateness just fundamentally shifts, doesn't it? Given the profound risks we've discussed to critical thinking, social development, human agency, the report actually concludes it would be inappropriate for such a device to be the sole educational tool at any age, especially for developing brains. Those early years are just so crucial for human-to-human interaction, for emotional development, for building foundational cognitive skills through active engagement, not just passive reception from a machine.
So as you think about all this, how will you make sure your own critical thinking, your own human connections remain strong as AI keeps advancing and offering these increasingly convenient ways to learn? Wow. This deep dive into the hypothetical camera AI device, it really lays bare a fascinating, almost frightening dichotomy. On one hand, it promises this unparalleled access to information, incredible efficiency. But on the other, it's fraught with these profound risks to the very core of human cognition, social interaction, even our identity.
The tension is just so clear, isn't it? Between AI's efficiency in transferring knowledge and the irreplaceable value of human experience, emotional intelligence, genuine social interaction. If that balance isn't struck very carefully, such a device could create a society that's technically proficient, yes, but severely lacking in emotional depth, social cohesion, and those adaptive problem-solving skills that only come from actually living and doing.
Which makes the report's recommendations absolutely crucial. We have to prioritize human agency and oversight. We need to cultivate critical AI literacy in everyone, safeguard human connection and emotional development, implement robust ethical AI governance, foster diverse cognitive pathways and cultural pluralism, and always emphasize experiential holistic learning.
Ultimately, the future of human society in this coming AI-driven world, it really hinges not just on our technological capacity to learn how to do everything, but maybe more importantly on our collective wisdom. Our wisdom to define what it truly means to know, to understand, and perhaps most importantly, to be human in an increasingly intelligent world.
This camera AI device, if it ever were to exist, it absolutely must be a tool for human empowerment and enrichment. It cannot become a substitute for the very essence of human existence. So for you listening, what does knowledge truly mean beyond just information? And what will you do to ensure your own deep dive into understanding continues, regardless of the tools available?
This is DigitView.